Welcome back. This episode I wanted to do on my own. I am going to run through the NL here. I'd like to get all of them done before the season starts. It's going to be a lot of fun. So, this episode here, we'll talk about my NL East, the division I'm part of. This division is pretty loaded top to bottom every single season. Even fifth place every year, Miami seems to be really strong this season, especially. They're always one of the best fifth place teams in baseball. Just a lot of balance here and parity. So this year should be no different. All these teams look pretty solid yet again. We'll start with Arizona. They made a huge addition in Zach Gallen. 1 year, $12 million. Gave up the comp pick for him. But he was definitely worth it. The guy has a huge profile, put up a ton of WAR, almost a 30 WAR career so far. Been an absolute star every single season in TLG. Really huge addition to an already deep pitching lineup. Garrett Cole actually had some progression. His control has gone up to a sparkling 70, my scout says. So at the ripe age of 36, still getting better. Absolute freak. Had a huge bounce back year last year. After an injury-filled couple seasons there. Had 120 innings a year before, 4.6 WHIP, lowered that to 3.8. So looks like ratings-wise, he should have an even better season this year if he can stay healthy. That's always the question once they get that type of age, over 34 years old. Nate Pearson is turned 30 years old, which is crazy. TLG is getting pretty far in the future now. Pearson's still an absolute monster, just like he's been the whole time. He's got crazy 200 inning. He cracked the barrier last year, 4.8 WAR. He's had over 4.8 WAR each of the last four seasons. Absolute perennial all-star, just one of the best players in TLG every single season. Has crazy ratings. Spark plug, which really helps. Should be no different this season. So those top three are really nasty. Top four was Soroka too. So that whole rotation, it's just so gross. Soroka has actually lost a little bit of his ratings here. In September, he went down his movement, and then stuff and control went down. So all three categories, he's dropped off 5. But it's not a huge deal unless it keeps happening because he's still so elite. Even with the drop off, he's got crazy control and movement. So the stuff drop off doesn't really matter that much as he's still so elite at the other things. Always been more of a finesse guy anyways that doesn't let up too many home runs. Just a ridiculous zero point 0.6 and 0.1 home runs per 9 the last 2 seasons, only walking like 4% of guys. So just a crazy talent. Led the NL in pitching WAR last season at 5.9. So just an absolute disgusting rotation that rivals anyone else in baseball. Might actually be the best top 4. And then you also have a pretty good number 5 in Miguel Tejada here. So with that Gallen addition really makes them scary. They're already really, really good. And then they add on a guy like that, pretty much like I said, pretty much top rotation in the league, right up there with Pittsburgh and a couple of those teams that are really nasty. Just such a good elite group there. The Chicago White Sox is up there too, but a bunch of guys on all those teams that just have multiple top end guys. So it's really exciting there. Catching wise, they have Danny Jansen, who's really solidified behind the plate there. A nice veteran to bring in a couple years ago, just last year. Had a nice just solid season there. Should be even better this season. Really nice rating still. Freddie Freeman hasn't really fallen off at all. Still at the age of 37 is just killing it out there. So him and Garrett Cole being interesting to see if those guys can hold on there for another whole season without losing many ratings. They're really getting up there, but absolute superstars still. I love those two guys. Big trade this offseason was a huge blockbuster, bringing in Ronnie Mauricio, a big switch hitter, really top the line second baseman there. Had a couple monstrous seasons in Pittsburgh. Is going to be a full-time second baseman, it looks like, this season. Really, 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 really talented dude. Another superstar coming to the NL East. It's going to be nasty. Atlanta's really improved their roster with those two moves, bringing in Gallen and Mauricio. They gave up a lot of young arms, so we'll see. Look back at that trade in like 3-4 years and see what comes of it. Kind of bunch of young talent there, so a lot to give up, but also a pretty good trade on both ends. Pittsburgh gets a lot of talent and loses some salary, and Atlanta brings in another star to an already star-studded lineup to really solidify them as one of the better teams in baseball, I think. They bring in a guy that was a batting champ in KC. Huge batting average of 344. Last season came back down to earth at 272. Guy that just really hits the baseball. Switch hitter, gives you solid base running, solid defense. Just a really solid guy there for third base and just be consistent. Daniel Lopez is a defensive specialist at shortstop, but he gets on base with a solid 45 bat and 55 eye. Doesn't have much power to speak of, but singles hitter that plays really high-end defense and pretty good base runner. Just what you need there at shortstop. And then they have a huge young star here in left fielder in Gallegos, big-time bat there. Ben Jackson looks like he's going to be a star center fielder, an absolute superstar ratings-wise. Always had the bad mentals, but didn't matter. He was so talented. He still developed. Looks like he should be able to plop in there and be a 2 or 3 WAR center fielder right away with probably the strongest arm in the league in center field. I think he's probably the only 80 arm center fielder that I know of in center field, and the 70 range puts him right at the top of the spectrum defensively. So it should be an absolute superstar to watch there in center field defensively. Pretty good bat offensively. So another young star there for Atlanta. This team is looking really scary. Acuna Jr. too. So that whole lineup is just nasty. Really, really good. I think they might be the best team in the division this year. Probably the best team they've had. If they can stay healthy. They do have a couple of those old guys that are really important. We talked about, and Cole, Soroka, and the first baseman there, Freddie Freeman, that all might have pretty good chances to drop off this year. So, but if all three or two of those three can hold on ratings-wise to the end of the year with all that young talent they have, they should be able to win 100 games. Next up, we have the Mets. The Mets have a really nasty rotation, and Escada, Derek Diamond, Barrios, and Abner, and Hughes. All 5 of those guys are really solid ratings across the board. You got 4 of those guys that have monster control, 65, 70, 60, and 65 control ratings. And then you got the big-time stuff out of Abner, a big-time lefty with some major strikeout potential. So really cool. They're not going to walk very many guys. All at pretty good movement ratings except for Hughes. So really good combination of not walking a lot of guys, not letting up a lot of home runs, and some pretty solid stuff ratings. So should be really balanced, really top of the line rotation. Kenley Jansen had a big regression here right before the year with his stuff, and his stuff's fallen off 10, and his velocity has really fallen off. So he might be more of a middle reliever type guy. See if he can hold on a little longer. He has some good mentals and fan favorites, so he's a nice guy to have in the bullpen there. But I don't know if I'd trust him at the end of games. We'll see if they holds on to that closer role. But they do have a couple other guys that could fill in there. Like Connor Grahams has some really nice ratings, a huge stuff reliever there, and Franzuna's a nice lefty in the bullpen there. But I think the only weakness I see there, they're really good starters, but the bullpen could use another nice arm there. I've had some big drop-offs in the last 2 years. They had to let go of Liam Hendricks. And Jansen looks like he's fallen off a little bit there. So see if they bring in kind of a replacement, but it shouldn't really matter. The starting pitching so good. They still should be really solid pitching wise. And then lineup wise, they have a ton of contact. Probably the most contact heavy team in baseball. A ton of green here if you sort by contact. A lot of guys that can get on base, and then a few guys that can knock them in with some big bats in the middle of the lineup there in Rizzo and Weber. Really, really nice overall balance between that lineup. Just a lot of heavy contact guys in the outfield. Having 2 outfielders that have 65 contact is pretty awesome. And Segura and Hassel. So really, really interesting team that could have a lot of games where they have like 10 and 13 base hits and stuff like that. Score 4 or 5 runs, and just comes down to how many home runs they can hit. And that stadium's always really hard to hit home runs. So Rizzo and Weber have to do a lot of that lifting of the home run power lifting. There's no one else in that lineup really has much power. I think a lot of it comes down to how much Hassel can produce. Ratings-wise, he's probably like a 4 WAR type center fielder. So we'll see if he can live up to those ratings and knock in 25 home runs or so. But that's definitely a guy to keep an eye on because they really need someone else. Only having 2 guys that can hit home runs. Probably need that 3rd or 4th guy if they're going to be able to compete with the power-heavy Atlanta lineup and Philly, and my lineup. A couple of teams in Washington just hit a ton of home runs. So to be able to have similar offensive output, we'll have to hit a lot of base hits there. So that'll be something to watch out for. Next up, we have the Washington Nationals, who won the division last year. Washington had a monster acquisition in the offseason, bringing in Matt Manning, as big as any signing in the free agency. The huge contract there, 5 years, $130 million, superstar arm. Bringing in him to compete in the top 3 spots there with Bayard and Giolito gives them a really nasty 1, 2, 3. Probably Clark Schmidt's one of the best number 4s in baseball. Had a tough couple of hitters parks there the last few years. Baltimore and Philly, and next to Coors, are probably the 2 hardest parks to pitch in pitching wise. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if he doubled his ratings output with when it comes to WAR this season playing in Washington. I wouldn't be shocked if he had a 3 WAR season. which is pretty much what he's had the last 3 years combined. Just a really, really talented pitcher that is probably a little better than people think. And then they have William Kepner, who's pretty much the same as the last guy we just talked about there. Clark Schmidt, just really similar, solid ratings across the board. So really like those guys. Bullpen always could use a little bit of work. They've been really struggling there the last few seasons. Last year they ranked 14th in the NL out of 15 teams in the bullpen. But you do have Will Smith back, who's still at the age of 37 and hold on to those top-notch ratings and had a couple of really good seasons. One of the better lefty pitchers in baseball. And then they have a couple of young, big arms there. And Russell's looking like he could be one of the best relievers in baseball over the next few years. A fan favorite, 6'5", 80 fastball, 100 miles an hour. Just has all the tools you look for. Really, really high-level arm there. So a couple nice young arms to see in the bullpen there. And then hitting-wise, they're going to be really nasty. One of the best lineups in all baseball. You got Juan Soto, Luciano, Baez, a couple huge bats. Hessen, just a really, really, really nasty power hitting lineup with some really good defenders there. They got Javier Edwards at second base, which I really like. 60 contact, really good at turn double plays, really rangy there. And then Baez shift into shortstop, it looks like, with that 65 range, 70 turn double play. So between those two guys and having the 70 range center fielder with a lot of speed, they should be really solid defensively at all the key spots. Just don't have a ton of defense there in left field, but the right fielder really makes up for it there with Brinson. And one of the best players in baseball in Soto. So just another really, really deep team. Should be able to compete for a playoff spot yet again for first place in division last year. Going to be tough to knock them off with all the power they have and all the key stars they have hitting wise, with Real Mutu being the best offensive catcher in baseball. Just such a nasty team. So really, really like them. Like how he's built that team through free agency the last couple of years and put a really, really quality team on after a short rebuild a couple of years ago there when he traded away Robles and a few of those key players. Miami's really improved as much as anyone this offseason. I think them and Cleveland probably improved their rosters the most the last year and a half. Really, really nasty team. Probably the best they've looked throughout the entire history of the 8 years of TLG. They brought in a lot of really good vets. A couple of guys that used to play for me, DJ LeMahieu and Gregorius. And really solid. Gregorius at the age of 37 has held on to his ratings, still looks like a solid player. Now they have a couple key players like Ernest Rodriguez, one of the best young shortstops in the league. Wouldn't surprise me if he puts up some silver slugger type seasons with like 40 home runs. That guy really has a crazy ceiling. If he can hit like 260 with like 38 home runs and put up plus defense, that guy could be one of the better players in baseball. And switch hitter too, just has crazy skill set. It's too bad that he's fragile at such a young age, so that's one thing to keep an eye out on. But we do have injuries that pretty turn to low in this league, so there's not too many injuries at all. So if he can hold on and stay healthy, I think he's going to be one of the best players in TLG. Absolute freak. And then you have Patino and Dominguez, a couple of those superstars in the outfield, both really young guys, 24, 25 years old. Turso had a huge year last year. That was one of the bright spots for them. 3-WAR season, 31 home runs. It's huge offensive output from some of those outfielders there. Dominguez also with 31 home runs. So really exciting to have two guys in the corner with that kind of home run power, and then a guy in center with 55. So one of the more powerful lineups in baseball. Probably would hit a ton more home runs if they're in the more home run friendly park. Still might only rank like 8th or 10th because of that lack of home runs in Miami, but offensive power wise are probably in the top 5. That's how much they've improved that roster. So exciting to see. Pretty solid veteran catcher behind the plate there, and Thomas Nido too. Another guy, Hearn, that will get a lot of plate appearances there too. So had 70 starts last year, so a little rotation going on there. First catcher, sorry. A really exciting team. So we'll just have to see if they can get some offensive output out of second base and catcher. If they do, I think they're going to be probably the best they've been, and really actually have a pretty legitimate shot to compete with those top teams in that division. So it's really hard to compete in that division, but they've got their roster to a level I think they really are just as good as us, pretty much. Really nasty how good they've gotten. A really good GM moves there the last year. So really like that new acquisition there. And next up, we have my team. My team has pretty much been the same as it's been the last couple of years, with always lacked that like true ace. But I've always had a ton of like number 2, 3 pitchers. Ohtani, Nola, Howard, all have really solid ratings for like, number 1, 2, 3, pretty solid average guys. And then I don't have that big weak spot. I've had pretty good depth at the number 4 and 5 spots. Owen Griffin, big acquisition, has improved a lot at the major league level, but had some really nice ratings there as an indie league guy. Brought in on a nice contract at $6 and $7 million the next couple of years. Really liked his stuff, and big velocity and fastball slider combination. Really nasty against right-handed batters. Just struggles a little bit more against lefty batters there, but looks like he should be a nice solid number 5. I go with the 6-man rotation because I have Ohtani as a two-way player, so I kind of get an extra player. I only have 13 players, hitters, and then I have 13 pitchers, but Ohtani counts as the 14th because he's like I said, he's a batter really. So I always make up for it by giving him an extra day off and going with 6-man roto, probably most of the season, to give Ohtani lots of rest. So because it's essentially having that extra player gives me the bonus there. So should have Soriano make the jump there. I might change my mind and put him back in the bullpen where he's got that electric stuff. He struggles a little bit with control movement, but we'll see. I'm going to give him a chance as a starter thing. I think with Romo helping his control, he could potentially have a big season as a starter, but that's one guy I'm going to really have on the fence there. He might end up in the bullpen again. But relief pitching wise, I think I have one of the best bullpens in baseball. I think Abar and Loyo give me probably the best number 1-2 punch out of the lefty guys in the bullpen in the entire league. Loyo is just ridiculous. He just keeps getting better. He went up a ton more in this season. Now he's all the way up to 70 stuff potential. His movement jumped up. He was already elite control. So now that you just see all that blue and his profile, he just at 99 mile an hour as a lefty should be one of the better arms in the bullpen in all baseball. I really liked this Leclerc guy. I brought him in on a nice contract. He has 70 movement, and then I have a bunch of high stuff guys. So should be a ton of strikeouts for me. I might just struggle a little bit with control. So hopefully those I don't let up too many walks here. But hitting wise, I think we're a little better. I got a real steal in Rosario there late in free agency. A lot of teams ran out of money and didn't want to give up that comp pick, so all I had to do was pay him $4 million for this year. A little bit more next year. I backloaded that deal once I had some money coming off the books. Couldn't really afford a lot more this year, but really, really, really excited for that acquisition. I think he's going to be one of the best second basemen in baseball. And then I have obviously all the other big names are back: Tatis and Adele and Seager and Romo, and brought in Sano. I think that 75 power righty bat in my stadium should be pretty monstrous. Going to give him a lot of opportunities this year if he can stay healthy. Probably like 130, 140 starts. So really excited to see if he can hit like 30, 40 home runs for me. And then a lot of the lineups pretty much the same as last year. Really struggled last year with only 86 wins compared to me. The talent I had, I thought it'd be more of like a 96, 97 win team. So I was quite a bit under what I projected last year. It was really a lot of it was to do with Harper's big drop off. Went from having a guy that was like 4 or 5 WAR every single season in right field right down to 0. But he's got such a big contract, it's tough to get rid of him. So I'm going to give him one more shot here at the start of the year. But pretty much he's going to have a short leash. If he's just having another terrible year and hitting like 170, 180 after a couple months, I might even consider releasing him. I just don't think I want to keep him on the roster the last 5 years if he's not going to be a productive player. The fact that he's going to be upset not playing in the middle of that lineup with his expectations. So he's a guy I might get rid of there. So we'll see. That's a big storyline to keep an eye out. Really sucks releasing a guy that won a World Series for you, has all that hardware, was just such a superstar, hit a big 3-run home run in the playoffs last year, and just been an absolute legend for me and a future Hall of Famer. So you really like to hold on to those guys, and I just wish he would retire before he falls off too much, but I'm not going to be too patient with him. I'm not going to do the Pujols thing like the Angels did in real life and just trot him out, getting 80 OPS plus for like 4 years and being a black hole in that lineup. I'll probably just release him if he can't turn it around, but we'll give him a few months at least because he's earned that. So that'll be it for this division. I think it's going to be really tough to win this one. I think all 5 teams are really, really good. I think Miami has a legitimate shot to win this division. That are just that good now. I think they've improved their lineup that much. It's just they have a lot of good bats now. So and a lot of athleticism there in the middle of the field. So I think this division is going to be so fun. I literally could see any of these 5 teams winning it. I think right now Atlanta might just be a little better than everybody else. Atlanta's just so nasty on the pitching side of things. I think that's the big difference. The other teams are all really solid pitching wise, but Atlanta has those true, like they might have the 3 best pitchers in the division all in their team. They with Soroka and Cole and those Pearson, those guys. I think I guess Matt Manning would be up there too, and Otani's pretty good. But yeah, they really, really are deep, and they're just as good as anyone hitting-wise with Acuna and Freddie Freeman, some of those huge bats leading the way. So yeah, I think I'd maybe give a slight edge to them in the preseason predictions, but yeah, everyone here looks like they're well over 80 wins talent-wise, so it's going to be really, really, really tough. Just going to be an absolute grind to see which team can pretty much survive without injuries and be the most competitive throughout the season. So really, really excited to see how this goes. It's fun to be a part of a good division there with some parity. That's it for this episode. Cheers, guys.